Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today, one of my more pleasurable experiences talking about watches, but also at the same time answering a question from one of my viewers who has something of a conundrum. He is ready to make a luxury watch purchase and he's torn in which way to go. Now stay tuned because at the end I will tell you what I'm wearing on my wrist and what my feelings are towards that watch. But let me tell you of the question from viewer Andy, who says here, I am thinking about buying my first Rolex watch. I find myself debating between the Oyster Perpetual 41mm green dial or the Rolex Milgauss. I know the Milgauss has now been discontinued by Rolex, so I would have to buy it from the pre-owned market. Do you have any thoughts on this? My criteria is that I do not want a watch with a day or a date complication on it. I feel that ruins the artistic aesthetic of the watch. Well, Andy, first of all, you've set yourself a pleasant, but some might say something of a daunting task. You have to choose between two highly iconic Rolex watches. And I think, to be honest, there's no loser here, right? You could pick either of these. Both of them are renowned in their own way for their style, for their robustness, but they do cater to slightly different needs and different appearances. You know, there are those who will be aficionados of one or the other, and they will likely dislike the other one. So today I am going to perhaps talk through these two watches so we understand the pros and the cons, and then I'll give you my decision, what I would do at the end. Now, you take my decision with a pinch of salt, by the way. It'll be my opinion and I'm a different person to you. But you've asked, so I will give you my opinion. Now, the Oyster Perpetual, you're talking about the green dial 41mm Oyster Perpetual. Years ago, these would have been considered the entry level into the Rolex world. They were somewhat modest in price in comparison to their perhaps more expensive cousins, and there were pros and cons to these watches for somebody who was interested in getting into the Rolex world. However, I think it is fair to say, through some clever marketing, through some interesting colorways which Rolex have introduced, these watches have now become totally iconic, highly desirable, and as we know from recent years, these strong stellar dials, as they call them, the powerful colors, they've been trading hands for much more than their retail price, so they're very hard to get hold of. And there's some good reasons for that. Now, we all know that it is a Rolex, all right? So without saying anything more, it comes with all the Rolex qualities that we expect. You know, precision, reliability, and to a degree, timeless elegance. But there are some specific pros and cons. Firstly, and I've made some notes so I don't forget these, timeless elegance. Now, the Oyster Perpetual is clean, it is classic in its appearance. It is arguably an extremely minimalist watch, and that means, and this is often the case when it comes to style, the less faff you have in something, the more versatile it becomes. You can easily wear the Oyster Perpetual with the most simple of clothing. You can wear them with your swimming trunks when you're at the pool or at the beach, or equally you could wear it to a high-end restaurant for dinner. It crosses the boundaries of style, formal and casual, quite easily. Now, the next pro I would give the watch is the variety of sizes and colors, which buying that watch, of course it's still in production by Rolex, it can be purchased brand new, but it comes in a huge variety of options. There is something there for everyone. It is available in the 28mm dial variety, the 31mm dial option, and I would suggest those two are more likely for ladies. Then you've got the 34mm dial option, which I think is the only watch of that size in the Rolex range of any kind, which is available. So it's kind of unisex. Then you've got the 36mm and the 41mm, which you personally are attracted to. So there's something for every size wrist out there. And then you've got the color options. Now, currently available, you've got the black dial, which I would suggest is ultimately versatile. You can wear that in pretty much any situation. You've got the bright blue dial, also available on the Datejust model and a couple of other ranges. Very, very beautiful dial. I've got that actually on my own personal Datejust. Now, the green dial, which you are attracted to yourself. The silver, which a bit like the black, hugely versatile, can be worn in any situation. And the somewhat interesting celebration dial, which, whilst it does look like somebody's thrown up over it in the 41mm option, it does actually have a huge following and is desperately sought after by many people. So there is truly something there for everyone. There's also, the other pro I've got here is affordability. Now, whilst, let's be honest, no Rolex watch is affordable, it depends on the depth of your wallet. But when it comes to the Rolex range, the watch you're interested in, the 41mm Oyster Perpetual, can be purchased right now for £5,550, all the fives, which it's crushingly expensive. I mean, let's not dally around that. You know, it is a stainless steel watch which doesn't have a complication, which virtually has no precious metals in it. It's quite basic, and it's more than £5,500. But in the Rolex world, you're getting into that world fairly inexpensively compared to other watches. And actually, you have the knowledge that right now, if you can achieve it for that price, you could sell it tomorrow and make a profit out of it. So you're buying with confidence in that regard. Also, the Oyster Perpetual benefits from the robustness which comes with every watch in the Rolex range. It is an Oyster case. It's got a screw down crown and it has water resistance to at least 100 meters. And we know with Rolexes, they're not playing around when they talk about water resistance. You can take this in the water each and every day if you want to, and it will perform admirably. And remember, 100 meters, we often forget, that's 330 feet. Now, if you think the typical depth of a swimming pool is going to be, what, 6 or 8 feet, something like that, you know, this is a watch you are never going to put to the test. It's got a very simple movement because it's a time-only movement. So its maintenance is straightforward. It needs a service once every 10 years. And I'll be honest, you know, you don't really need to service it every 10 years. You could leave it until there's some effect of the accuracy, but you've got a bomb-proof watch. Now, when it comes to negativity for that watch, there's not many at all, to be honest, in my mind. I've got 2 points for you, which I think are slightly negative with the OP. That is, it's a lack of complication. All right, and actually for you, if you don't want anything on the watch, like a date, you don't have a problem with that. So I would say it's a negative, but actually you can say it's a positive. So we'll negate that one. The only other negative I can think of is the fact that it is quite a less distinctive watch when it comes to the Rolex range. People tend to like Rolexes because of their charisma, their personality. They have a distinctive look, often quite chunky, quite robust. The Oyster Perpetual kind of has no distinctive features. It doesn't have a fluted bezel. It's got the fairly, you know, typical Oyster bracelet, which is seen on practically every other brand in the watch world these days. There's nothing which looks special. To my mind, an Oyster Perpetual looks a little generic in the watch world. It could easily be a Seiko, an Orient. You know, from the other side of the road, it might look like any number of other watches. Again, I would say that may be a negative. You might find it a positive if you want something which, you know, slips under the radar. But if you're buying your first ever Rolex, often people want to choose a watch which is iconically Rolex. They want the Datejust or the Submariner or something which many people know when they see it. Whoop, there's a Rolex, there's no doubting that. The OP, not really in that category, I would say. It is stealth Rolex, but that might be a good thing for you. Okay, so let us look at the other option on the table today, the Rolex Milgauss. Something of an unusual watch, this one, introduced in 1956 with the very specific purpose of being a watch for people who need anti-magnetic qualities to the watch, hence its name, Milgauss. It's a measure of magnetism. And it was made for scientists, people who work in laboratories, people who work with delicate medical equipment, people who work in power stations. So quite an unusual, field in which to produce a watch. And it's been through a number of iterations over the years, changed its look from time to time. It looked a bit more sporty originally, then it went through a bit of a conversion. The most recent Rolex Milgauss, which was deleted from the range in 2023, I think had something of a distinctive appearance. It became instantly identifiable by people. It had been discontinued, I think, in 2000. When was it discontinued? It died off in 1988, but it was brought back by Rolex in 2007. So there's nothing to say that the Milgauss won't come back again in the future in something of a different look. But if it's the look, the most recent model, which retired, it was something quite distinctive and special. Now, because it's discontinued and its scarcity is what drives this opinion these days, it is now selling on the pre-owned market for typically between 9 and 10,000 British pounds. So it's quite a lot more money than the Oyster Perpetual. We have to consider that as well. And it's likely to perhaps go higher in price as that scarcity factor kicks in. It's interesting. So I've got some pros for you. The biggest pro, obviously, is its magnetic resistance. I say a pro if that's something. If you are a laboratory scientist, that might be something in your opinion. Most of us, likely less so. The next distinctive element to it is its design. The famous orange lightning bolt second hand is something which you only ever saw on the Milgauss, and I think it was a really attractive feature, and it was probably its standout feature. It was totally iconic, and on the particular model, which had the Z blue dial, the green tinted glass also made this watch very, very identifiable from across the room. So very much, iconic in its appearance. Very much like the Oyster Perpetual, as another pro was its durability. It also had the Oyster Perpetual case, screw down crown, 100 meters water resistance, absolutely bomb proof and robust. You can't take that away from it. So they're equal in that regard. Its versatility, yes, I would say it still retained quite a lot of versatility. Even though it was designed for a niche purpose, because of its design appearance, let's be honest, it had the typical Oyster Perpetual case. It was essentially a very versatile design that you could wear in the research laboratory, and later that night you could easily wear it in a dinner party. It would not look out of place. So even though it was designed for a niche purpose, I think it's still widely variable. When it comes to its cons, so the negative elements of this watch, I would say obvious things like its higher price. It's been discontinued. It's going to cost you about £10,000 if you wanted to buy a good model today. So you're looking at probably nearly twice the price of a brand new Oyster Perpetual at retail price. So there is that to consider, and it's likely to go upwards as that scarcity factor kicks in, if that watch remains as desirable as it has been over the last couple of years. Another con is its limited options. Now with the Oyster Perpetual, you've got all those different case sizes, you've got all those different dial variations in the 41mm size that you were looking for. In the Milgauss, you've got two options basically. You've got the Z blue dial with the green tinted glass, the one that everybody wants, so highly desirable. It's really, the only one which people want in the Milgauss range. Or you've got the black dial, which is very much the poor relation to the Z blue version. So only two options out there. You could probably get the black dial a lot cheaper than the Z blue, but it's up to you. I'm guessing if you want a Milgauss, you want the Z blue. So that's where you would be going. The other thing I would say is it's heavier and it's thicker. It is a chunky old monkey, the old Milgauss. It's a much thicker watch, even though it's on the Oyster Perpetual case, but it's a beefed up case compared to the OP model. So it does make it a much less attractive proposition if you have a smaller wrist. It is actually quite a chunky old thing. So need to play that into your thinking process. What I would say, my observations, I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning. Ultimately, it is your preference when it comes to the style and the appearance. They're both bomb-proof, versatile, incredibly reliable watches. The Oyster Perpetual offers perhaps more versatility, more choice in your decision to buy it in different colours and things like that. There's not a great deal to argue with it. The Milgauss, it's going to cost a lot more, but one would say it is a lot more avant-garde in what it brings to the party. It is unmistakably a Rolex, and unmistakably, with the Z Blue version, with the tinted glass and that orange lightning bolt on the second hand, it is unmistakably a Rolex Milgauss. Much more character, much more charisma than the somewhat staid and reserved Oyster Perpetual. Now for me, and you have asked me my opinion, I'm going to give it to you. It would be the Oyster Perpetual all day long, because at the price point, I think it represents better value for money and a better watch going forward. You can wear that OP every day with not a worry in the world, because it's going to look after you. Whether you're in the water, whether you're in the boardroom, whether you're on your wedding day, or in a high-end restaurant, or participating in some sort of sporting activity, it's got you covered. Whereas the Milgauss, at practically twice the price, it's something it might weigh a bit more heavily on your shoulders when you're wearing it and using it, because there aren't that many going to be out there going forwards. So I did promise you, what am I wearing on my wrist today and what are my thoughts on this? Because people have asked me about this watch. It is my Cartier Santos. I've owned this watch now for over 3 months, and I sold my Rolex Explorer to buy this watch because I couldn't have two such similar watches in my range. And a lot of you guys said to me, you've made a terrible mistake. The Explorer is iconic. It's God tier. Not at all. I have not missed the Explorer one iota. And in fact, the Cartier Santos has become even more something which I enjoy to wear every day. The difference in style, the difference in its characteristics, it just works so much better for me. And it is a very robust watch. Do not fall into the train of thought that the Santos is a dress watch. Whilst it is very wearable with a sports jacket, as I'm wearing today, it's equally as wearable with much more casual clothing because of its all stainless steel and simple styling characteristics. So for me, not a moment of regret, and in fact I'm now looking with increased interest at other watches in the Cartier range, as Rolex seems to be on a journey to becoming something of a toxic, overexposed brand, and I've got a number of Rolexes in my collection. I'm seriously thinking about thinning those down and buying something a little more stylish. But that's maybe a conversation for another day. Today I've answered Andy's question. Andy, let us know which one you go for. We'd love to know. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please press your like button, click subscribe if you'd like to see more. Drop me a question of your own, be it on watches or anything within the men's lifestyle arena. I'd love to try and help you. And you can even drop me a comment or drop me an email, whichever way is the best for you. If you'd like to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, one-off tip, or you can become a patron. Videos for my patrons, and I've got a personal relationship with those guys, and the link to that page is in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care, and I'll see you again very soon.